In 1989, deep in communist Yugoslavia, a man named Ivo Boscarol was building aircraft in secret. He would wait until military pilots finished their day, then sneak onto the airfield and fly his experimental machines at dusk to avoid detection. The locals called him and his contraptions bats, Pipistrel in their dialect. 30 years later, that illegal operation had transformed into an aviation powerhouse that caught the attention of a $13 billion American corporation. Textron paid $235 million to acquire Boscarol's company in 2022. Their prize wasn't just the world's only certified electric aircraft, it was something far more ambitious: the Panthera, a sleek four-seater designed to dethrone the undisputed king of general aviation, the Cirrus SR-22. For over 2 decades, Cirrus has dominated like no manufacturer before it. Best-selling aircraft for 23 consecutive years, nearly 50% of the entire piston market. A parachute system that has saved 287 lives. Pipistrel believed they had the answer: better engineering, superior efficiency, stunning design. But here's what makes no sense. Despite years of development, hundreds of millions in backing, and performance that rivals or exceeds the SR-22 on paper, almost nobody is flying the Panthera. The reason reveals how aviation really works. In 1985, Alan Clapmeyer was training for his instrument rating when his world changed forever. During a routine practice flight, another aircraft slammed into his plane in a terrifying mid-air collision. The other pilot died instantly. Alan and his instructor somehow landed safely with 3 feet of wing and half an aileron missing. Most people would have walked away from aviation entirely after such trauma. Alan walked toward it with a radical idea. What if there was another option? That question became the foundation of Cirrus aircraft, and the answer became CAPS, the Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, a rocket-deployed parachute that could lower an entire airplane safely to the ground. It was dismissed as a gimmick. Critics called it a crutch for bad pilots. Then it started saving lives. Here's what the numbers reveal. As of late 2025, CAPS has been deployed 142 times in genuine emergencies. The result, 287 survivors. Not a single fatality has ever occurred when the parachute was deployed within its certified parameters. Not one. Think about that for a moment. Cirrus created the first production aircraft where a catastrophic failure doesn't have to mean certain death. They didn't just build an airplane. They built a psychological safety net woven into the very fabric of general aviation. The market responded with its wallet. The SR-22 has been the world's best-selling general aviation aircraft for 23 consecutive years running. Over 10,000 SR series planes have rolled off the production line. They command nearly 50% of the entire piston aircraft market, a dominance so complete it defies comparison in modern aviation history. But here's what most people miss about Cirrus's remarkable success. It wasn't revolutionary speed. The SR-22 isn't the fastest in its class. It wasn't revolutionary efficiency. Other aircraft burn less fuel. What Cirrus built was something far more powerful than any single specification. They built an ecosystem. The Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association with thousands of devoted members. A training program called Cirrus Approach that fundamentally changed how pilots think about emergencies. Service centers spanning continents. A community that doesn't just fly these aircraft, they evangelize them. This was the fortress that Pipistrel decided to assault. Not with comparable resources, not with decades of market presence, not with a global support network, with engineering. They believed a better airplane could topple an empire. They were about to discover just how catastrophically wrong that assumption could be. The story of Pipistrel begins in the shadows. In 1989, Ivo Boscarol was secretly building aircraft in communist Yugoslavia, where private aviation was essentially illegal. He would sneak onto military airfields at dusk, testing his experimental machines before darkness fell. Local villagers watched these strange contraptions darting through twilight skies and gave them a name: bats, Pipistrel in their dialect. From those clandestine beginnings emerged something remarkable. A company that would pioneer electric aviation, win NASA competitions, and eventually catch the attention of corporate giants. In 2012, Boscarol unveiled his most ambitious project yet, the Panthera, a sleek four-seater with targets that seemed almost impossibly aggressive. 200 knots cruise speed, 1,000 nautical miles range, 10 gallons per hour fuel burn, an 1,100-pound useful load, all wrapped in a carbon fiber airframe that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film. The aviation world was intrigued. Here was a genuine David preparing to challenge Goliath. But then the problems started. Pipistrel had designed the Panthera around a Lycoming IO390 engine that could burn automotive fuel, a significant advantage in markets where avgas is scarce. When Lycoming failed to certify that engine for MOGAs, everything changed. The switch to a heavier IO540 engine forced over 200 design modifications. The original targets began slipping away. 10 gallons per hour became nearly 11. 200 knots became 185. Close, but no longer revolutionary. Then came the cavalry. In April 2022, aerospace giant Textron paid $235 million to acquire Pipistrel. They created an entirely new division called Textron eAviation, specifically to accelerate development. Certification was promised by 2024. The future seemed bright. Here's where investors should have studied history. Textron had acquired another innovative aircraft company once before. Columbia Aircraft made beautiful composite machines that became the Cessna Corvallis TT-X. Production ended in 2018. The line simply vanished. Now watch what happened with Pipistrel. The year 2024 arrived. No certification, just promises of more testing, more delays, more corporate restructuring. As of today, only 13 Pantheras fly in America, all under experimental exhibition rules that prohibit normal private use. 150 orders remain unfulfilled. The certification process continues indefinitely. While Pipistrel wrestled with bureaucratic purgatory and corporate integration, Cirrus wasn't waiting. They were evolving, building something that would make challenging their dominance not just difficult, but practically impossible. In late 2025, Textron made a quiet announcement buried in SEC filings. The eAviation division, created specifically to nurture Pipistrel, was being dissolved. The Slovenian manufacturer would be absorbed into Textron Aviation alongside Cessna and Beechcraft. Corporate speak for something far more troubling. The special attention was over. But the real failure wasn't corporate restructuring. It was strategic blindness. Pipistrel made 3 catastrophic miscalculations that doomed their challenge before it truly began. First, they competed on specifications when buyers choose ecosystems. The Panthera matches or exceeds SR-22 performance on paper. Faster cruise speed, better fuel efficiency, comparable useful load. None of it mattered, because pilots purchasing $700,000 aircraft aren't reading spreadsheets. They're asking different questions entirely. Where's my nearest service center? Who trains pilots on this aircraft? What happens when something breaks at a remote airport? Cirrus answers those questions with 24 service centers worldwide, with the Cirrus Approach Training Program, with a community of 10,000 owners sharing knowledge and experience. Pipistrel answers with a factory in Slovenia and a single American dealer. Second, they ignored the psychological revolution CAPS created. Cirrus didn't just add a parachute. They fundamentally changed what buyers expect from personal aviation. 287 people have walked away from catastrophic failures because of that system. The Panthera has a parachute too, but it has 0 saves, 0 track record, 0 decades of proven reliability. Would you bet your family's safety on unproven promises? Third, they fell into the certification trap. Experimental exhibition status sounds technical. Here's what it actually means. Those 13 American Pantheras cannot legally be used for personal transportation. Their pilots can demonstrate at air shows, conduct research flights, train other pilots, but fly to visit family for the holidays, prohibited. Meanwhile, Cirrus kept innovating. In 2025, they introduced the SR Series G7+, the first piston aircraft with autonomous emergency landing capability. A passenger can now push a single button and the airplane lands itself. While Pipistrel fought for basic certification, Cirrus leapfrogged into the future. The contrast is devastating. Cirrus delivers over 500 aircraft annually to customers worldwide. Pipistrel has shipped roughly 13 Pantheras to America in 4 years. One company built an empire. The other built a beautiful machine that almost nobody can legally fly. Engineering excellence means nothing without everything else. None of this means Pipistrel failed as a company. Their electric aircraft pioneered an industry. Their light sport models have trained thousands of pilots. Ivo Boscarol's vision of affordable, efficient aviation changed what was possible. But the Panthera taught an expensive lesson about how aviation actually works. Cirrus didn't win because the SR-22 is the fastest aircraft in its class. It isn't. They didn't win because it's the most efficient. It isn't that either. They won because they understood something Pipistrel missed entirely. Pilots don't just buy aircraft. They buy into families, the training programs, the pilot community, the service network that spans continents, the safety system that has brought 287 people home to their families when everything else failed. Pipistrel tried to outsmart Cirrus with better engineering, but you cannot engineer your way around 2 decades of saved lives. You cannot outspec a community of 10,000 owners who evangelize your product. You cannot shortcut the trust that comes from 23 years of market leadership. The Panthera is still waiting for certification. Cirrus just shipped their 10,000th aircraft. Some battles aren't won with better technology. They're won with something far harder to build. If this story surprised you, subscribe. The next chapter of aviation's future is just beginning.